Hello chess lovers, welcome back to my chess channel. During the 1958 US Chess Championship, the 15-year-old Bobby Fischer met the experienced Grandmaster Samuel Reshevsky. Reshevsky was not just anyone, but a Grandmaster who dominated chess in the USA for decades. At this point, Reshevsky was already a living legend. At this time, when this match took place, Reshevsky did not just dislike Fischer, he dismissed him. He refused to acknowledge young Bobby Fischer from Brooklyn as an equal. But Fischer was not just talented. In this game, Fischer did not just beat the legend, he embarrassed him by using a trap that would echo through chess history. This trap is found in every textbook today. Fischer started with pawn to e4. Fischer immediately claims central space and signals aggressive intentions. He plays for the win from the very first move. The response from Reshevsky was pawn to c5. Reshevsky chooses the Sicilian defense, aiming for a symmetrical play. We have knight to f3. White supports the e5 square and prepares the central break with d4. Black plays knight to c6. Black develops naturally, keeping options flexible. d4. And black captures c to d4. The white knight captures to d4 and black plays pawn to g6. Reshevsky enters the accelerated dragon, planning quick development and pressure on the long diagonal. The accelerated dragon, a sharp weapon that brings the bishop on g7 to life. Now we have from white knight to c3. And black plays bishop to g7. Bishop e3 from white. And knight to f6 from black. Then Fischer plays bishop to c4. A direct and ambitious move. Fischer places the bishop aggressively, already targeting f7. Fischer played against Reshevsky his beloved first move in chess, pawn to e4. We entered a Sicilian accelerated dragon. Fischer preferred the Yugoslav-style setup with bishop c4. He wanted to control the center and stare down that king on g8. The bishop on c4 is Fischer's trademark. It immediately exerts pressure on the most sensitive point in the black position, the f7 square. Reshevsky answered with kingside castle. But the kingside is not as safe as it appears. We have bishop to b3 from Fischer. A quiet retreat with a deep idea. Fischer anticipates black's plan and prepares tactical punishment. Fischer drops the bishop back to b3. This is a standard prophylactic move. Here is where Reshevsky falls into the abyss. He plays knight to a5. This is the famous mistake of this game. On the surface, it's a standard idea. Trade the knight for the strong light-squared bishop. Reshevsky, a master of the opening, thought he was following established theory, but he had missed a little nuance that Fischer had discovered in his home analysis. The surprise is pawn to e5. Fischer uses the moment to drive black's knight away. The knight is now paralyzed. The knight is forced to retreat to a passive square. Reshevsky absolutely had to capture the bishop on b3. even though Fischer would still have had the advantage. After the knight retreat, black is losing. If black captures on b3, we have the following position. This position is really bad for black, but not losing at once. After the retreat of the black knight, Fischer plays a wonderful move. In this position, black could retake the bishop on e7 with the rook or with the king. Both moves are very bad. The decision of Reshevsky was to take with the king. And now we have the next star move from Bobby Fischer. A brilliant follow-up. The knight leaps into the heart of the black camp. The white knight cannot be taken by the king because of queen to d5 and a following checkmate. The queen on d8 has no escape squares. If the king takes, then we have queen to d5, king to f5, pawn to g4 check. The king has to take the pawn, and then rook to g1 with check. And black is lost. So Reshevsky takes the knight with the d-pawn. Black eliminates the knight, but the damage is already done. Reshevsky chooses the lesser of two evils, giving up the queen for two pieces. Bobby Fischer captures the queen on d8. The combination has worked perfectly. White emerges with a decisive material and positional advantage. The great Reshevsky has lost his queen, but he did not resign. His pride would not allow him. But the game was over at that point. The material advantage of the white queen is overwhelming in this open position. The psychological advantage now lies entirely with the 15-year-old boy. Who would not have resigned here? But the great Reshevsky could not do that after only 11 moves. He played knight to c6. We have queen to d2 and bishop captures on e5. Bobby Fischer is castling kingside and black moves the knight to d6. Bishop to f4. And we have knight to c4 from black. The queen moves to e2. Black captures on f4. And white captures on c4. King to g7. The king steps away, but remains exposed. Fischer has consolidated, he has the queen and a centralized position. Now he uses his pieces to paralyze the black army. We have knight to e4, bishop to c7, knight to c5, and rook to f6. White moves the pawn to c3 and black moves the pawn to e5. We have rook to d1. The rooks come to open files, increasing pressure. Knight to d8. Another retreat. Black's pieces are tied up defensively. Knight to d7. A strong infiltration. White controls k-squares and disrupts black coordination. Rook to c6, and Bobby Fischer moves his queen to h4. This queen is a ghost, haunting the entire board. Reshevsky is tied in knots. He tries to defend the e7 pawn, but Fischer just keeps probing. We have rook to e6 from black, a defensive regrouping, but the position remains hopeless. The white knight comes to c5, and black moves the rook to f6. Knight to e4, and rook to f4. The white queen captures now with check on e7, and the black rook moves to f7, queen to a3, knight to c6, and the white knight moves to d6. A powerful centralized knight, anchoring white's dominance. Because of that, the bishop take on d6, rook captures on d6, and bishop to f5. Pawn to b4, queenside expansion. What else? Rook to f8, b5, fixing weaknesses and creating passed pawn potential. Knight to d8, rook to d5, knight to f7. Black is completely tied up. Rook to c5 and pawn to a6. b6. Now the passed pawn becomes a decisive factor. Bishop to e4. Fischer has traded off Reshevsky's most active pieces. He creates a passed pawn on the b-file. This is the hallmark of Fischer's play, turning a material advantage into a structural nightmare for the opponent. We have rook to e1, bishop to c6, rook captures on c6, a final exchange sacrifice to clear the path for the b-pawn. Fischer knows that the resulting endgame is a trivial win. Pawn captures on c6. Now we have pawn to b7. Rook from a to b8. Queen captures on a6. Fischer removes the last queenside defender. Now we have knight to d8 again. Rook b1. The black rook comes to f7. Pawn to h3. The rook captures on b7. White recaptures with the rook. Black rook captures on b7. And the white queen moves to a8. Here Reshevsky resigned. The position is completely lost for black, and the back rank is crumbling. Reshevsky, facing total annihilation, finally tipped the king. This game is a textbook example of Fischer's clarity of calculation and sense of timing. Fischer showed that even against the most experienced opponents, one inaccurate move can trigger a devastating tactical sequence. This game was more than just a point for Fischer on the scoreboard. It was a psychological execution. Reshevsky had been the king of American chess for 20 years. But in this 12-move trap, Fischer proved that the old guard was done. Bobby Fischer went on to win that US championship with a score of 8.5 of 11 points. The era of Bobby Fischer had begun. Thanks for watching this video. I hope to see you at the next board. Bye for now.